Welcome back to another edition of the Here We Go podcast. I am your host, Trent Gang. And like I've been doing recently and during this early start to free agency, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we saw today. And quite frankly, it wasn't very much. So, what's up? For everybody who doesn't know, that is formerly known as Justin Berg, with his new name is Crash Outberg. I love it. We waited all day for some news to come out. And really, the only thing that we got was Keeneth Gainwell. And I'll be honest with you, I actually really liked Keeneth Gainwell signing. I think, number one, it's going to pretty much be the end of the Cordero Patterson experience. It did not go well. He was not very good at the entire reason he was brought here, which was to return kicks. He was pretty much dead last in the league. He had a few bursts here and there. We look good, but the injuries you could see the age is kind of creeping up on him there. So did not end well. Keeneth Gainwell, on the other hand, is somebody who has some explosiveness. He's definitely going to be a third down back. He's probably going to be the guy who's taking the Patterson spot as the kick returner. Be interesting to see what they do with Jalen Warren, assuming that he's going to be the starting running back, because I'm not sure that you want to see him as the actual kick returner and starting running back. It's possible. Some teams are doing some things like that. I'll be interested to see what fallout we might see from that. But Keeneth Gainwell is definitely a guy who's a big play type of player. So I actually like the signing a lot. So we actually have our first question. So how big of a contract is Rodgers? I don't know. I first of all, that report that came out earlier on him, what was it, 2 years and like $90 million or something crazy. I don't think that's what it was. I don't think that's even close in the ballpark, because I just can't imagine we're going to pay a 42-year-old quarterback that much money. But I do actually think that a lot of this free agent frenzy signing stuff is due to the fact that we're waiting on Aaron Rodgers right now. I think that's pretty much evident in what you see. And there's a clear formula right now that Omar Khan is using, in my opinion, and he's looking for compensatory picks. This is all building up to 2026. They're trying to get as much draft capital as they possibly can to move up and go get a quarterback in next year's draft. So this is going to be interesting, and this is why I don't think that contract is probably going to be as big as what I couldn't remember who it was. Was it Mike Florio? I think that was the guy who may have thrown that number out there. The big contract numbers out there earlier. I don't think they're going to pay that much money for a guy that they're only probably going to really need for 1 year, maybe a second year. So, 2 years, 45. That might be it. And this one, I'm not sure he is. I kind of mentioned this last night. I think something that was really interesting is that the team kept saying, we kept hearing reports that, Russ is plan B. It's Justin and then Russ is plan B. If Russ was plan B, this thing would have been done a long time ago. Like the second that the Jets signed Justin Fields, you could have probably assumed that Russell Wilson's contract was going to be really quick to wrap up, but that's just not been the case. It seems that they're really willing to wait for Aaron Rodgers. They want Aaron Rodgers to be a part of this team. And I think the thing that's probably the scariest of everything right now is just the collection of personalities that they're trying to get in the same offense. Like, it's going to be really, really interesting. We saw AB and Le'Veon Bell and Big Ben for a while, but if we have a room that looks like Aaron Rodgers, George Pickens, DK Metcalf, hell, you might as well go sign Stephon Diggs to throw in the mix there. What the hell? We might as well make this into like a Saturday morning sitcom or something, because it's going to be quite the collection. And then Arthur Smith, how is he going to navigate that? I don't know. I think that's funny. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I did not think Aaron Rodgers looked at all like himself last year. I don't know if that injury played any factor in that at all. You start to question if it could possibly be injury, or could it possibly just be the fact that he's 41 years old? get going into year 42. I don't think that's going to be the thing. I don't know. If he can give you, I mean, the only thing I could see versus him and Russ at this point is the fact that Aaron does get the ball out of his hand quickly still. He still has a strong enough arm to get the ball downfield. I do think he lost some velocity last year from what I saw. So I'd be really interested to see how that works. But, he's smart enough to know that when you've got two big-time playmakers on the outside, just give him a chance. And that's something that he could bring to the table. Russ could also throw the moon ball, but if the only thing that's going to be a lot different with Aaron than what Russ could bring to the table is he does throw to the middle of the field. Now, whether Tomlin's going to let him, I would assume if you're bringing this kind of a caliber player in, he should be willing to let him. So, and I agree with this too, because Aaron Rodgers is notorious for taking his time on these decisions. I think the problem is how patient are the Steelers going to be on this move? And should they be patient? I don't think they should personally, because, I mean, again, this is not a guy you're going to sign for 5 years. This is an aging quarterback who we're not even certain is going to be any good. And the options are just terrible at this point. So, I mean, you're probably absolutely right. They probably know he's going to take his time. But how long can Omar Khan sit around and wait and continue to let free agency play out the way that it is and not make some of these splash plays that they're, we're hoping to make, I think, coming into free agency. I mean, DK Metcalf's obviously a splash in the trade. Darius Slay, if that whole thing's reported to be true, would be, in my opinion, a splash, even though he's another guy who's very old. He's 34 years old as a corner, but still playing at a really high level. So, yeah, you're probably right. They probably understand that he's going to take his time, but I don't know how much time they should be willing to give him, considering, there's still some quality players out there, but at what point do you turn that around and say, yeah, we're not going to do that? Tuesday, that could be very true too. Tuesday morning sitcom on the Pat McAfee show. You might as well just bring the whole cast of characters in there, because that'd be amazing. Yeah, Rodgers he definitely still has a better arm at this point. I mean, Russ, he still throws a great deep ball, but I just don't know. Like, he doesn't open much of the offense up. Last year, I mean, he really beat up on some really, really bad teams that were missing at times 2-3 guys in their secondary. I mean, the Giants game, I think they were out 3 guys, and then one of their starters got benched. I believe the Jets game, they were missing 2 of their starters. Sauce came off for about 5 plays or so, to be a third starter outside. Like, he really beat up on some bad teams last year. I will say Aaron's probably better suited to play, at least in the style of offense that Arthur Smith wants to run. He's notoriously good for the play action fake. He sells it better than probably just about anybody in NFL history. And that's something that Arthur Smith wants to do. I would still be all for signing Asante Samuel, even as a slot. Still very young, still very talented. I know people knock him for the tackling ability and things like that, but I think he'd be a really good signing. So I'd be all for that one. So your third name on here would be a lot of fun to watch. Like, Jameis Winston and Mike Tomlin together would be the absolute pairing of the century. A quarterback that is notorious for throwing interceptions with the most risk-averse coach in probably modern NFL history, at least. So I think that would be hilarious. I mean, Rudolph, there's a report they've already talked to Mason Rudolph about potentially coming back as a backup. Joe Flacco, I mean, he's, the Kyler Murray thing, you're like the third person I've seen today throw Kyler Murray's name out there. I've not heard or seen anything to the effect of maybe him being available. I don't know. What would Arizona do at that point? Because, I mean, they don't have anything behind him. Malik Willis. I mean, I think if you get down to the list of names that were on here, you could probably just throw anybody out there, and you're going to say, like, we don't care who the quarterback is at this point. We're just going to try to quarterback proof the offense as much as possible, and we're going to just see what happens at that point, because I don't know what else you're going to do. Like if these are your names that are the best options available, then I mean we're in a bad way no matter what you do. It's a little early to look at next year's quarterbacks. Although Colin and I did an episode pretty early on. I think we actually did it right after the NFL draft last year, so it was actually in April. So it might be just a hair early, but I do like to look ahead on some of these things just to see like how close we can get on some of these guys that are right. I know a lot of people in Pittsburgh are going to want Drew Aller, the guy. He's a Penn State guy, so obviously he's on TV quite a bit here in the local areas, but. I don't know. I mean, Arch Manning's going to be the big name that everybody's going to talk about, but are we going to have the first pick of the draft? Will he be the first pick of the draft? Nico, I don't know how you say his last name. Molov, however you say his last name. He's intriguing, very talented kid. I mean, there's actually a lot of intriguing quarterbacks for next year. And I think this one's probably still coming. Additions to the D-line. Look, there's still names out there. So like everyone is having a complete meltdown and they're freaking out over the fact that Omar Khan is kind of sitting on his hands right now. Look, if the Aaron Rodgers thing happens, he's got to know what kind of compensation he's going to have available to spread out through the rest of the team. I think that's the biggest part of why he's not being more aggressive than he, may have wanted to be at this point. But there's still some good players that are out there. Defensive line, there's still some guys out there that you can go get. I've missed some of the signings today. I was pretty tied up at work. So, even if we got like a true nose tackle, something we haven't really had in a long time on this defense, an aging guy, Jonathan Hankins or somebody of that type, that you're not in base defense that much. I think we ran base defense 22% of the time, but even picking up a guy like that who Jonathan Hankins, what was he, 32 years old or so, that'd be a guy that you could make a move. It's not going to be like the sexiest thing that everybody's, wanting to see. But I still think there's a lot of options that are still on the table. But the defensive line, I mean, I said this earlier, I still think this is possible. I could see them doubling up in the draft. Such a deep draft. I could see them, if Kenneth Grant is not there at 21, if there's nobody that they love at 21, there is a real possibility that we could trade back in this draft to try to acquire a second-round pick, because we're already, down a second-round pick now with the DK Metcalf trade. So I could absolutely see a scenario where we try to move back, try to acquire another pick, even if it's a third-round pick, at least get ourselves an extra shot at drafting some really good talent. But I think D-line is going to be pretty heavily addressed in the draft. I could really honestly see where we go with two different defensive linemen. Listen, if he was available, Omar Khan's going to call any quarterback with a pulse right now. If there's any remote possibility that he thinks Kyler Murray could be there, I could definitely see, him making that phone call. So pretty much anybody who's ever thrown a football beyond the level of high school is probably getting a call from Omar Khan right now. Possibly. I'm not like super familiar with him, but I mean, I think that we're going to look at a lot of different options in this. Arizona, if they really want to start going the other way, I think they invested pretty heavily in their defense, though. So I don't know if that's going to be the plan for them. I think they're trying to set up a defense that can kind of match their offense so they can try to win. So I don't know. I just personally, I don't see Kyler Murray as a guy that would be available at any point in time. I could be wrong on that. I think a lot of this stems back to the reports of him not doing his homework and not studying film and things that he's, been alleged of in the past. I think some of that's kind of blown out of proportion, and so his name's going to keep popping up here for a little while. But again, I could easily be wrong on that one. Joe Milton, man, look, so many people are intrigued by this guy. He was in college for 6 years. He is 1 year younger than Justin Fields. I mean, do people actually know how old this kid is? I mean, it took him 6 years to have a quality season. Like, I don't see it. I mean, I know he had like one good preseason game or something like that, where he beat up on a bunch of guys that are now currently like bagging groceries somewhere. He's just not. He's not very good. Like, sometimes the combine makes guys look so much better than they actually are in reality. Joe Milton definitely is not a guy that I would see as a viable option. If you want to take a shot on him, and if he ends up being like a quality backup, like, and he gets you through 2025, then sure, if that's how you feel about it. But I think you could probably go literally anybody else that's available and get better quarterback play, because Milton was not very accurate in college. I think the numbers get skewed a little bit from his Tennessee tape. He had 2 NFL quality wide receivers on the outside. They like to spread the ball out and kind of sling it around the yard. He's intriguing because of the size, his athletic traits, and I mean, I don't know if there's a quarterback in the NFL that throws the ball further than he does, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I love me some Milton. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also what everybody in like all of the media across every platform is doing right now too, is just throwing out every name that's available right now and tying them to the Steelers, because at this point it could be anything. So I think Aaron Rodgers, I don't know the appeal for the Giants. Like, I don't know what his appeal would be to the Giants. That is the thing that, I mean, it would literally have to be coming down to maybe the Giants are just willing to pay a lot more than the Steelers are, very similar to the situation with Justin Fields and the Jets. Maybe that's intriguing him. But like at 42, at what point are you just worried about winning one more title and then riding off into the sunset? Like, I don't know. Like, he's going into year 42, and I just can't see like the appeal there. So I'm wondering if the contract is just that much different between the Giants, who are going to be a super desperate organization, versus the Steelers, who know they're setting themselves up for 2026 and drafting a guy. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that game. Yeah, Joe Milton in the Week 18 game against their second string, and probably some guys they called up from the aquatic water engineers with Bobby Boucher. You're right. I mean, like I said, the tools are there. I just don't know that he would ever be a quality player in the NFL. I don't know. I never liked him in college personally. It's fun to watch him throw the ball around the yard in the combine, but I just didn't see much in him. That's kind of what I think is going on with the Aaron Rodgers thing. I do think there's some better money on the table with him and the Giants, and that might be what's holding this thing up. Aaron is notorious for taking his time on contracts, though. I mean, he told the Green Bay Packers he'd have a deal in a week, and like he went into some like silent, dark room for like a month. My wife, if you haven't heard me say this before, is a huge Packers fan, so she knows the pain of the Aaron Rodgers saga very well. Great player for a long time, but man, he does not do anything in a very quick fashion unless he's actually out on the football field. That's for sure. Yeah, the Giants are pretty much a dumpster fire. The only thing I would say that the Giants do have is Brian Daboll, I would say, is a better play caller than Arthur Smith. I think if you wanted to go to a team with a better offensive mind, they do have a better offensive mind in that room than what we have in Pittsburgh. I just don't know. I don't know the appeal, though. I mean, that the offensive line's terrible. Not that our offensive line was great last year, but I really just don't see the appeal to the Giants with Aaron Rodgers, because that's still going to be a rebuild scenario. It does feel like the Steelers are at least trying to go a little bit more all in to give, at least a shot here to playoff. And that's the appeal for them with Aaron Rodgers. So whether they believe he can get him over the hump or not, I don't know, but like he's at least going to give him a better shot than some of the names that are out there at this point in time. So I could not imagine Rodgers and Sanders in a room together, though. That would be nuts. But yeah, I know everybody's looking for the big swings in free agency. I think the Rodgers thing's really holding this thing up, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that once that gets settled one way or the other, no matter which direction it goes, you'll start seeing a little bit more traction. And I really think that people are going to undervalue this Keeneth Gainwell signing. I think he is actually a really talented player. He's cooked the Steelers in the past. Great third down back. It's going to take something off of Jaylen Warren's plate. I mean, he's been the guy who's kind of been the third down guy behind Najee Harris all these, last couple of years. So takes that off his plate, gives you a really quality guy to put in there. And then you're still going to draft a rookie running back to fill out that room who potentially could be a starter. If he plays better than Jaylen Warren, could be the starter. Don't know. But if nothing else, it gives you another, good running back that you can rotate in there. And Gainwell's not going to take a ton of carries from Jaylen Warren, so you're going to need somebody else to kind of fill out that room. So the next position we should attack, I would really be interested in offensive guard. I think we should bring some competition in for Mason McCormick. I know McCormick played pretty well as a rookie. I would expect that he grows and he takes a leap forward next year. But I would honestly try to bring in another offensive guard. Mekhi Becton is a guy that I'd be really, really interested in. If we're going to be a team that wants to run the football, there's nobody that really wants to run the ball down your throat like a big boy in Mekhi Becton. I think that would be something that'd be really intriguing. Pair him up next to Troy Fautanu, and on the other side of obviously Zach Frazier. I think it'd put you a really solid right side of that offensive line. So maybe not like the biggest need on the board for us, but it's a position I think would be really, really intriguing to attack. That would absolutely be my luck too, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty exhausted right now, so I wasn't planning on doing this for long tonight anyway. I just wanted to kind of cover some basic news and talk some ball with everybody. But yeah, that would be. I would literally hit end stream and he would probably sign like tonight. That would exactly be my luck. They need a swing tackle for sure. So Colin and I were talking about this. I think I brought this up last night as well. If you do bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers and the mobility isn't there, even if you bring back Russell Wilson, who is still going to be a good bit more mobile than a guy like Aaron Rodgers, how much trust and faith do you want to put into Broderick Jones making the move to left tackle? The talent's there. They drafted him to be the left tackle of the future. But we've seen what he's done so far in 2 seasons. If you're going to kind of get this all-in mentality on trying to win, and you're going to bring in some aging guys like Darius Slay, like Aaron Rodgers, you make the trade for DK Metcalf. He's not aging, but you're making big plays to improve this roster. Do you want to let that hinge on a left tackle that we've not seen play left tackle yet? I would definitely bring in some competition for Broderick and kind of push him into that starter role and really make him earn it. I mean, I actually said there was a good shot Ronnie Stanley should have been a target for them if he wouldn't have re-signed with Baltimore. Might be controversial because you gave up a first-round pick traded up for Broderick Jones, but depending on what moves you were going to make in the offseason, and I think the moves they're making right now, you could have made a real case that he should have been a guy we should have looked at. It obviously didn't work out that way, but I'd still bring in. I mean, is Calvin Anderson bringing him back? Is that going to push Broderick Jones forward? No, he's going to be a true swing tackle as a backup behind those guys. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way we've handled the quarterback position for a long, long time has been just absolutely terrible. I mean, dating all the way back to when Ben Roethlisberger was here playing in his prime. I mean, he didn't want even anyone signed as a backup. He wanted no parts of drafting a backup rookie that could pose any threat to him in his starting position. And we didn't put any time and effort into, I mean, of all the things I've said negative about Mason Rudolph, the organization did nothing to help that kid grow. Could he have taken over as the starter one day? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe, who knows? Like, if you'd addressed that early on, would he have been a different player? He's probably who he was going to be no matter what. But, like, you put nothing into developing him. And look at what Kenny Pickett came into. I wasn't the biggest Kenny Pickett advocate. I didn't even want them to draft him because I thought we'd have been better served to draft a tackle, not go after quarterback that year. Just accept the fact that you were going to take your lumps and start building out the offensive line. And I wanted that back then. But if you draft a quarterback, you've got to develop them and you've got to give them resources to help them grow. And we didn't do that. Like, we had no offensive guys who were going to be there to help mentor him and help him grow in a coaching staff position, let alone like anybody else in the roster. I mean, it was super young offense, still is really. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. We've mishandled and mismanaged that position for a really long time. And I think the Justin Fields contract situation is just another example of how we've done that. I mean, if you've listened to me at all, I was saying at the very end of the season, after the loss, they should throw 2 years, $30 million at Justin and just commit to him as the starter, and that thing would have been done. I still believe that today, but we lowballed, allowed the Jets to come in and make an offer, and then they decided to probably overpay. I mean, $20 million a season for Justin, I think, is probably an overpay. I'm kind of glad the Steelers did not try to match that one, but I don't think it should have ever gotten to that position. Becton definitely was a tackle. He started his career as a tackle. It didn't work out there. He moved to guard, got kind of bumped around the league a little bit, moved to guard and settled in there pretty nicely, actually. The quarterback position is definitely the last year's wide receiver room. And no, I would not make a good GM. Not at all. I could try to call contracts and see what I think is going to happen with the market, but man, I don't want that responsibility. Omar Khan definitely has his hands full. I mean, I think it's next year. I will say this. I still do not think that we have the right pieces in place to help a quarterback grow. Mike Tomlin has never been a part of growing a quarterback within the organization. Ben was already an established guy there when he got there. So he's never really had to do that. I don't know. Tom Arth, he's never developed a quarterback either. He's the current quarterback coach. I mean, we kind of saw the experiment in Atlanta, if you want to call it that, with Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. But Arthur Smith's never developed a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill got traded from Miami to Tennessee when he was there. And so he was already an established guy. So literally no one on the roster has ever developed a quarterback. If I were the Steelers, and we are going to pretty much throw a ton of picks at trading up for a guy next year, I think they need to get a coach on their roster and expand this coaching staff, because my God, we're still like one of the smallest coaching staffs in all the NFL. They need to expand the coaching staff, create a position just for that rookie quarterback, get somebody in there who can help this kid, whoever that kid's going to be, help that kid grow and give them the best chance to succeed. If not, why are we throwing all these resources and picks and everything else into just trying to get a guy and hope he pans out on his own? There's a lot of people, and I think you would have mentioned this last night too, thought he was going to do it today on the show today for Pat McAfee, but I can't say I know his normal routine, if that's on Tuesdays or Thursdays or Wednesdays or whatever day he normally goes on there. But I did say this before. I think it would be a very Aaron Rodgers type thing to do, to go on and announce it on Pat McAfee show for sure. I think Big Ben would be a great guy to put in there, but I highly doubt he'd be interested. It's a lot of time commitment. Coaching's probably a much larger time commitment even than probably the players, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know if he'd ever be interested in that. I know he kind of shot down the offensive coordinator rumors there really, really quickly after the whole Matt Canada saga was kind of reaching its end and its breaking point there. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of angry fans out there right now from our fan base. Yes. um, I know there's a lot of angry people in the fan base because there's not more moves happening right now. But when you're talking about trying to sign a quarterback in free agency, there's a lot of things that can change. If you sign a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you're obviously not going to have the same kind of money as if you go sign, Jameis Winston or whoever else. If you bring back Mason Rudolph to be the starting quarterback next year, like that price tag's totally separate than Aaron Rodgers. I'll be honest, I've not seen anything concrete as far as what his expected compensation is going to be. I will say that I think he would retire before playing dirt cheap. I don't think. I think the Stafford thing hasn't even been released yet, but I think the Stafford deal is going to be about $28 million a year. I would not pay Aaron Rodgers over that. Matthew Stafford, I think, is probably a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. Aaron Rodgers is very, very far from that. You're going to be paying for the name and the fact that we are paying out of desperation right now because we don't have options. So I have a feeling the contract that he wants is over $30 million. Like I said, I don't think it's anywhere near what was reported earlier today. And I don't even know if that guy was saying like he had sources on that or if he was just kind of throwing a number out there. But I don't think I would be willing to pay anything over what Matthew Stafford got. And he probably isn't worth that, to be perfectly honest with you, but I don't think he's going to play for less than that either. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess, is what that is. I mean, probably 28 would be my number. I think the Mason thing was mutual, to be perfectly honest with you. Mason wanted a guarantee that he was going to get a chance to start. I think he felt very slighted by some of the things that happened. And, Kenny, he felt like he did enough to start after leading the team into the playoffs and down that stretch the last 3 games. And I feel like he just kind of felt like the organization slighted him one too many times and he wanted to try his luck somewhere else. That obviously did not work because the Titans were not very good. I think they need a second year to be an easy out. I wouldn't guarantee the second year either. If they could get him for 23 to 25 million a year, then that's probably a lot more realistic. I don't think I would not want to pay Aaron Rodgers $30 million to be perfectly clear. I just think that's a number he's probably got in his head. I'll try to see if I can pull something up here and see if there's any expected compensation for him. Let me try to get to. Because I'd really be interested to see what the annual expectation is for him. Yeah, I don't know. So it said that it was 2 years, $90 million, $40 million fully guaranteed at signing is what they had thrown out there earlier. Spot Rack has him much lower than that. At a $23.5 million cap hit, that'd be his current contract. So they are just going off his current contract. Which is an interesting thing because if we did sign Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's why they're heavily involved in the Aaron Rodgers thing, is because they are looking at him more. If Russell Wilson signs somewhere else, we could get another compensatory pick. My goodness, I'm losing it right now. So that would add another thing. Aaron Rodgers being released would not count against that. So I think that would be I think that's another big reason why Aaron Rodgers makes some sense to the organization of what they're doing right now is they're really trying to build up these compensatory picks. The max on the compensatory picks you can have is 4. I think he would make the 4th, and they still have some others. So if they like address other areas of need, there's some other guys out there who could potentially sign if we don't replace them that we could actually continue to like keep that 4th compensatory pick. So, yeah, it's a little challenging to do live sometimes when you're throwing things out there and trying to look stuff up on your end. That's why I like doing that with Colin a good bit of times because it gives me a chance to kind of look things up as we're talking. So, but yeah, I really like I like doing this. I like getting all the feedback and the questions you guys are throwing out there. So I really appreciate you all looking at checking this out and following with me. So if anybody sees any actual expected contract for Aaron Rodgers, I'm not seeing one right now, but he would be a guy that I think would be interesting to see what that number actually comes in as because I don't know. I don't know. I mean, how many of you out there right now that are watching would you pay $30 million for Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career? Like I'd be hard pressed to want to go over that. So if you're talking 2 years and 90 million, 40 of it guaranteed, that's basically front loading the contract for the $40 million for one season and probably looking for an easy out in year 2. That seems like a bit much. I'm trying to pull it up right now. I'm not getting it pulled up how I want, but yeah, that's what I was trying to look at right now. I've had so much stuff I've been pulling up on here right now that I'm not finding it. Yeah, it's just showing the current contract for what I'm looking at right now. But yeah, so if you guys find something different than what I'm looking at right now. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about that because you're not only going to need to have the starting quarterback with, I believe him. If you have Aaron Rodgers or even if you go after Russell Wilson, you still have to have a backup that could go in there and play too. So, I mean, would you draft a guy? Would you try to go after another guy to be the backup? Possibly. I agree with you. That's kind of where I'm like, I don't know that I would go over 30 million. I don't know that I would go over the Matthew Stafford contract. I think it's probably actually like 27.5 is what Stafford played. I've heard something that he's kind of playing on the same contract he played on last year. And so, like, again, if you're going to pay a guy like Matthew Stafford about 27.5, then why in the world would you give a guy who's much older and not anywhere near on the same level a higher salary? And it's really just out of desperation, and that would be the only thing. I think 25 is fair. If they can get this thing done for 25 million, in the market that we're in right now, with the cap space that we have available right now, that would cut that cap space in a little more than half. But we are going to I imagine we are going to extend TJ Watt. When you do the extension on TJ Watt, you really could make his contract whatever you want, make the cap hit whatever you want it to be this year. DK Metcalf, once that thing is officially inked out, like it'll be interesting to see. I think I heard Alan Saunders mention that they think the DK Metcalf the cap hit could be as low as 8 million. Not that they would probably push it that low, but I mean, there's so much they can do when they renegotiate these extensions. So could open a ton of cap space with that and still go after more free agents. So I don't know exactly where we're at this point because the Larry O getting cut. I think that Cordell Patterson probably gets cut tomorrow or released, I should say, which he's going to open up, I think, another 4 or 5 million in cap space next year. So we're going to still have plenty of room, but you don't want to throw it all into one 42-year-old quarterback. That's not where you want to be. So, but anyway, I think that's good for tonight. I'm going to wrap it up. 5 a.m. comes pretty early. So I appreciate you all getting on here. This is actually probably one of the biggest audiences we've had since I've been doing this. So I really, really appreciate everybody getting on here, look, and then checking this thing out, sharing some feedback, asking some questions, throwing out some opinions. I like to try to throw as much up here on the screen as I possibly can. So if you've not done it before, check out some of the other content that we put out there. Always, like I say, always like, share, subscribe. I do this for fun, not looking to make any money. So it's just a hobby of mine. So I appreciate you guys checking in, and I hope you all have a great night.